of renting.
There are only two valid reasons for renting. Number one, you live with your parents rent-free, which isn't one of my options. Or number two, you live in a rent-controlled apartment in a city like New York where you pay $300 a month for a place that would normally rent for $1,000. If you buy and live in a home for at least 5 years, you live free. All of your monthly payments, closing costs, insurance, and property taxes are returned to you through your tax savings and your profits when you sell. Let's say you have the option of either buying or renting a $100,000 home. Now, refer to your manual to the Live Free by Buying chart. Let's take a look at what happens when you make that decision to own instead of rent. When you own, in our example, your first year's interest expense is $9,500 and the property taxes are $1,000 for a total of $10,000. But your investment return from tax savings and appreciation, as you see in your chart, is $9,300. If you pay $800 per month rent for the same home, you're throwing away $7,200 per year, or $36,000 during the 5-year period. Why? No tax deductions, no appreciation. When you move, landlord keeps every dollar you put into the property. All of these great benefits go to the homeowner. Over the next 5 years, you would pay $760 a month in mortgage payments for a total of $45,600. Adding $5,000 for property taxes, your total cash outlay would be a little over $50,000. First glance, that looks like a lot more than the $36,000 in rent you could have paid. However, your yearly cash tax savings from deductible interest and property taxes is $3,465. Your appreciation would be about $6,000. You spent $10,120 per year and got back in cash and equity $9,465 a year. In real dollars, you spent only $655 a year to live in a $100,000 property. That's $3,275 for the first 5 years. That's all it costs you to live. But wait, part of your mortgage payment is going towards paying off about $4,000 of your principal. That's more than the $3,275 you paid for the home rather than renting. By owning instead of renting, you have literally lived free, paid no taxes on your appreciation. There's no better deal in America than owning your own home. It's one investment you can't afford to be without. I'm going to teach you the strategies for buying your first home. Now, if you already own your home, pat yourself on the back for having been so smart. If you don't own your own home, kick yourself in another place to get the motivation you need to buy one. All the strategies, remember, I'm going to teach you, so knowledge will not be a problem.
Strategy 7-2. Get a bigger mortgage to create a better investment.
Your home is more than just a place to live. It is one of the absolute best investments you'll ever make. There are 4 positive uses of a mortgage. Number 1, to increase the return on your real estate investment through what we call the power of leverage, or borrowed money. Number 2, to enable you to buy a home without paying cash. Number 3, to free up real estate equity for higher return investments. And number 4, to pay off non-deductible consumer loans with tax-deductible equity loan money. Leverage is the use of other people's money, what we call OPM. And a home mortgage is an easy method of putting OPM to work for you. Earning $10,000 in a savings account would require an investment of $50,000 for 2 years at 10% interest. 30% of your interest would then be lost to taxes. Buy a $100,000 home with a $10,000 down payment, and if the home appreciates 5% a year, you've earned the same $10,000 in 2 years, and the money is all tax deferred. Your investment return is 50% per year instead of 10%.
Strategy 7-3. Locate favorable real estate properties through ads, drive-bys, realtors, and foreclosure lists. When you're looking for a property to buy, you're in the driver's seat. You're looking for one property, and hundreds or even thousands in your city are for sale.
There are 5 major ways to locate acceptable properties. Method number 1, newspaper ads. In your hometown newspaper every Sunday, you'll find a complete listing of all property for sale directly by owners and through realtors. There's a law in most states that requires all real estate professionals to identify in the ad if the property is being sold by an agent. Use your Sunday paper to research an area for good properties and also for average home prices. Method number 2, drive-bys. When looking for potential investments, keep a notebook on the front seat of your car. As you drive around, you'll see lots of for sale signs in every neighborhood. When you see one in front of an attractive home, jot down the phone number of the owner or agent and call to gather information or to make an appointment to see the property. Method number 3, realtors. By far the easiest way to locate properties is by contacting real estate brokers or agents in your area. Most real estate people are realtors, which is a trademarked association term. We will use the words real estate agent and realtor and sometimes broker interchangeably in this section. Realtors, using their multiple listing service, MLS, computer, can pull up a list and description of all properties for sale in a specific area. And they can do that in a matter of moments. In addition, every agent has an MLS book with pictures and statistics on all the properties for sale in the city. Now, there are both pluses and minuses to using brokers when purchasing a property, which we will discuss in the next strategy. Method 4, foreclosure lists. Not everyone pays their mortgage payments on time, and some get so far behind that they lose their properties to foreclosure. Foreclosure is a process where the mortgage lender forces a property to be sold because of non-payment of mortgage payments. A property is usually foreclosed on after the 3rd monthly payment is past due. Once a payment is past due, a mortgage company will not allow the mortgagor to make a partial payment of the past due amount. If 2 payments are past due, the mortgagor will be required to make 2 full payments to bring the mortgage current. One reason why more properties go into foreclosure than would otherwise be expected. Once 2 or 3 payments are past due, many homeowners do not have the financial ability to make all the back payments at the same time. Now, only a small percentage of properties ever go into foreclosure, except in economically depressed areas. There are some real opportunities for buying properties at 15 to 20% below fair market value. Foreclosure lists are available for every area. The easiest to obtain are through FHA, Federal Housing Administration, and VA, the Veterans Administration. By calling these federal agencies listed in your phone book, you will be able to get the names and phone numbers of realtors who can show you these foreclosed properties. Now, don't be surprised when looking at foreclosures at the condition of the property. Often, these properties have been run down during the time of ownership or have been vandalized while sitting empty. Occasionally, you'll find 1 or 2 on the list in reasonably good condition. One reason why they will be priceless is that they will probably require some fix-up.
Strategy 7-4. Use an MLS computer to sort properties by price, terms, number of bedrooms, or other factors.
Most all brokerage firms have a computer tied directly into the MLS service. Although for the most part the computer has the same information as the MLS book, you will find 2 important differences. First, listings in the MLS book, because of printing and publishing time, are always about 10 days old, while on the MLS computer, new listings are entered daily. Secondly, the computer can select and print a list of any type of property you're looking for, including type of first mortgage, number of bedrooms, price range, and amount of time the property has been for sale. All of these factors can be used to your negotiating advantage. In your manual, you'll find examples of printouts from an MLS computer with instructions on how to use the data. By familiarizing yourself with both the MLS computer and the MLS book, you will have an unlimited source of desirable properties, both for your investments and for your own personal use. Now, to have access to the MLS book and computer, you must decide to work with a realtor, or you could become one yourself. Or maybe you have a good friend in the real estate business who will allow you access with no commitment. In your manual, you will find a checklist for assessing the advantages and disadvantages of buying your properties through realtors or doing the work yourself by working directly with sellers. Check the advantages and disadvantages of each of the two methods which you feel apply to you. You will begin to see which method you should use. No one right answer, and of course, you may work with a realtor at the same time you're attempting to locate desirable properties and willing sellers yourself. If you decide to work with a realtor, you will have to spend some time, and sometimes some frustration, locating one who is on your side and will follow your investment guidelines. Good place to start is at your Charles J. Gibbons Organization workshops and Delta Group meetings, where you'll find lots of real estate professionals who are well aware of the given strategies and how to make them work for you.
Strategy 7-5. Use the 10-10-10 formula to buy a property right.
Your objective when buying investment properties is to achieve at least neutral cash flow. That means your income covers your outgo. Income includes rents, and outgo means mortgage payments, maintenance, interest, and taxes. The 10-10-10 formula will help you achieve that objective. The 10-10-10 formula means that you will pay a maximum of 10% down, finance the balance at a maximum of 10% interest, and make an offer to buy the property that is 10% below the market value. For instance, let's say you're looking for a rental property. On the one you choose, the fair market value is $80,000. Using the 10-10-10 formula, you would pay no more than $8,000 out of your own pocket. That's the down payment. And that even includes your closing costs. The balance of $72,000 would be financed with an interest rate of no more than an average of 10%, whether you use 1, 2, or 3 mortgages for the balance. Of course, any time that you can come in with numbers less than 10%, you're just that much better off. You'll find that this rule of thumb will almost always enable you to create neutral cash flow. Your income from rents, after you've owned the property for at least 2 years or more, should be increasing faster than your expenses. So you should eventually expect positive cash flow.
Strategy 7-6. Use the building block approach to financing real estate.
If you buy a property for $100,000, one way or another, you're going to have to pay the seller $100,000, either now or later. In addition, you must come up with the full $100,000 to pay the seller. When buying a property, the most important question always is, where am I going to get the money? The building block approach to financing allows you many alternatives. Alternatives that use combinations of mortgages, making the property easy to buy and cutting your down payment to a minimum, or in some cases zero, if that's what you want. In addition to your down payment, you can use as many as 3 existing or new mortgages to help you buy a personal residence or an investment property. Look at the chart in your manual entitled Financing Real Estate, the Building Blocks, and you'll get an overview of your mortgage choices. Once you learn the terminology and choices of first, second, and third mortgages, then you're ready to start making offers using combinations that fit your situation and the property you're buying. The terms first, second, and third mortgages are used to show a mortgage's relative security position. If a property were to be sold for default on mortgage payments, the money would not be split equally between the mortgage holders, but the entire first mortgage would be paid off before any money would be paid toward the second mortgage. Then the second mortgage would be completely paid off before any money would be applied to the third mortgage. In case of a foreclosure, there may not be enough to go around. So the first mortgage holder might get everything, third mortgage holder might get nothing. The traditional method of buying a home is simply a process of filling out paperwork for a new mortgage and paying the difference between the mortgage amount and the purchase price as a cash down payment. As a smart real estate investor, your approach to buying properties will be totally different than the conventional approach. Let's look at your first mortgage choices when you're choosing the building blocks. First mortgages fall into 2 categories, new mortgages and assumptions. New mortgage means that you're creating financing by either going to a mortgage company to borrow money or you're getting the owner to act as his or her own mortgage company. New mortgages fall into just 4 categories. Number 1, conventional. Number 2, FHA. Number 3, VA. Or number 4, owner financing. Assumable mortgages also fall into 4 categories. Number 1, conventional. Number 2, FHA. Number 3, VA. Or number 4, private mortgages. There are specific rules and costs that apply to each. You must know them. New conventional mortgages are offered by mortgage companies, savings and loans, and a few banks. The paperwork is expensive, and you must qualify by having sufficient credit and income. The normal down payment on a conventional mortgage is 20%, or $10,000 for every $50,000 you borrow. If you wish to pay less down, that's possible by purchasing PMI, private mortgage insurance. You can pay as little as 5% down on a conventional mortgage by agreeing to pay private mortgage insurance at the rate of 0.5% of the total mortgage amount. If you can afford to pay 10% down, you still must have PMI insurance, but it drops to about 0.25%. Private mortgage insurance is not optional on a new conventional mortgage, but occasionally a mortgage lender will waive the PMI if you pay at least 10% down. Remember, there's no PMI if you pay 20% or more down, but large down payments are not always a good idea. A large percentage, but not all, of conventional mortgages are assumable, but assumable with qualifying. If you're buying a property on which the seller obtained a new conventional mortgage when they bought the property, the mortgage may be assumable if you qualify by filling out approximately the same papers for credit check and income as you would have had to complete for a new conventional mortgage. If the interest rate on the original conventional mortgage is lower than the current rates, the lender will have the right to raise the interest rates when you assume the mortgage, even after you've qualified. There's usually an assumption fee of about 1 to 3% of the mortgage amount on a conventional mortgage. For instance, if you're assuming a $70,000 conventional mortgage, your assumption fee would be $700 to $2,100, which would become part of your closing costs. If the existing conventional mortgage has an adjustable interest rate, the mortgage can normally be assumed under the existing interest rate terms.
Strategy 7-7. Avoid looking at properties that would require a new conventional mortgage or assuming an existing conventional mortgage.
Conventional mortgages, we've said it time and time again, are the most difficult to obtain or assume. The one time a new conventional mortgage does make sense is if you're buying a personal residence and can get a fixed interest rate of 9.75% or below, or an adjustable rate that has the first-year interest rate of 2% less than the going fixed rate.
Strategy 7-8. Use a new FHA or VA mortgage as your prime source of primary residence financing.
FHA and VA new mortgages are your best source of new home financing because they're normally easier to qualify for than a conventional mortgage, and they require a smaller down payment. In the case of FHA mortgage, the down payment is 3 to 8%, and in the case of a VA mortgage, sometimes there is no down payment. There are limits, however, to the maximum amount of money that you can obtain with an FHA or VA mortgage. Anyone may apply for a new FHA mortgage, and the maximum amount of the mortgage in the most expensive metropolitan areas in the country is now approximately $125,000. In other areas of the country where property prices are not so high, the maximum amount may be limited to around $80,000 to $85,000. When applying for a new FHA or VA mortgage, you must sign a statement that says your intent is to occupy the property on which the mortgage is placed. The occupancy statement, however, does not require that you live in the property for any specific length of time before you move out and turn it into a rental property.
Strategy 7-9. When buying investment real estate, locate properties with existing FHA and VA mortgages.
30 to 50% of the properties in any investment pocket will already have existing FHA or VA mortgages on them. FHA and VA existing mortgages are fully assumable based on federal law with no qualifying and with a maximum of $45 as an administrative fee. No points. Anytime you can buy a property with financing attached, you have saved yourself hours of effort and hassle in getting the financing. No qualifying means that you have the right to assume the mortgage no matter how bad your credit rating and no matter what other terms that you make for paying the balance to the seller. In other words, there's no minimum down payment requirement.
Strategy 7-10. Use a single payment mortgage to cut the monthly payments on a property you are buying as much as 20%.
A single payment mortgage is a mortgage that requires only one payment. That payment's made at the end of the term with both principal and unpaid accumulated interest payable at that time. When you make a single payment mortgage part of your offer to purchase, you're asking the seller to take a lump sum payment of all principal and interest at the end of the term, usually 5 to 7 years. There are no payments of any kind in between. The advantage to the seller is that they avoid capital gains taxes for the term of the mortgage and allow the interest to accumulate and to be paid in a lump sum. The avoiding of the capital gains taxes is based on the installment sales tax rules, which say, on the sale of a property under $5 million, taxes need not be paid on the profits, only as the profits are received.
Strategy 7-11. Use the triple punch strategy to buy your first home.
Learning how to buy your first home is not at all difficult if you've got a good financing strategy. I want to teach you a strategy that will let you purchase your first home even if you have no cash or no credit. I'm going to teach you how to make it a 20% down payment without cash, even how to lower the payments on your mortgage by 20% per month. 40% of our new members at the organization do not own their own home, and if you're one of them, this is the strategy for you. Step 1, find properties with existing FHA or VA mortgages. FHA and VA mortgages are assumable in many instances without much qualification and cost you only $45 to assume. Let's use the example of an $80,000 property you're looking at. Let's say it has on it a $45,000 FHA or VA mortgage. With your signature only and $45, you may take over that mortgage. Now you finance the first $45,000 of the property. Well, let's say that the sellers tell you they need a 20% down payment or $16,000 cash. Now, let's say you don't have any cash or credit. If you did have credit, you could go borrow the money on a second mortgage and give the cash to the seller with you ending up with the payments. But since you have no credit, let the sellers get their own mortgage. You ask the sellers to get an equity loan on their home for $16,000. Then they have the cash that they need. Now, you take over the payments on the equity loan, the sellers keep the cash. When the sellers say to you, but what about my risk? You tell them simply, as I've always done, you have no risk. You've got the cash. When the sellers say, well, what if in a couple of years you stop making payments on the second mortgage? My answer was always, you better hope I stop making payments because then you'll get the house back and you've had somebody take care of the house for 2 years while it was appreciating. Now, step number 3. You give the sellers a note for the balance. What's the balance? Well, let's see. We had a $45,000 FHA first mortgage, $16,000 second mortgage or equity loan the sellers obtained. We financed $61,000. We owe the sellers $19,000. You have the sellers hold a 7-year single payment note for the balance of the $19,000. What's a single payment note? Means that you agree in 7 years to pay back the $19,000 in one payment with all accumulated interest. So your $19,000 might by that time be $30,000. Now within 7 years, the house you bought for $80,000 may be worth $120,000 to $140,000. So your two choices are, number 1, refinance the home and continue to live in it by that time. It'll have enough equity to refinance your cash flow and credit will probably be good. Or number 2, sell the home and pay off the original seller and move yourself into a nicer home. 3 steps. Assume an FHA or VA mortgage. Step 2, have the sellers get an equity loan for their down payment. Step 3, you give the sellers a single payment note for the balance with all principal and interest to be paid in one payment in 7 years, no payments in between. Using these steps, getting out there and practicing, you'll find you can quickly buy your first home. You can even write into the contract that you expect the seller to pay the closing costs. Now you may say, well, how many sellers are going to do this? I can tell you exactly, because I use this strategy for 15 years to purchase rental properties. 1 out of 3. So, if you want a home in the next 30 days, make offers on 3 homes using the triple punch strategy. Write into the conditions clause that the first homeowner that accepts your terms will be the one you buy from. The other contracts will become invalid. Actually put the pressure on the home seller. Remember, home seller has 1 home to sell. You can look at as many homes to buy as you wish. Happy house hunting.
In this section, I've given you more knowledge about real estate and how to buy it than most people will get in a lifetime. I've used this process to buy over 200 single-family homes and small apartments. You can get your real estate investment plan started with your own home or investment properties just by filling these guidelines. Improvements are expenses that add to the value of your home and are differentiated in tax law from repairs. Improvements make your home more valuable. Repairs only help maintain the current value. Following are examples of home improvements and home repairs to assist you in understanding the difference. A home improvement would be paneling a room, whereas a home repair would be replacing a scratched or broken panel. Improvement, new shrubbery. Repair, replacing dead shrubbery. Improvement, installing a fence. Repair, painting a fence. Improvement, carpeting a room. Home repair, replacing or cleaning your carpet. Improvement, paving a driveway. Repair, repairing cracks in your driveway. Improvement, adding a room. Repair, simply painting a room. Remember, improvements, deductible, repairs are not. Upgrading can also turn non-deductible repairs into deductible improvements. If you upgrade something that needs repairing, such as a hot water heater, roofing, or carpet, the difference between the repair cost and the upgrade cost is considered an improvement and is deductible. Here's some examples of upgrades. Replacing a 30-gallon hot water heater with a 60-gallon energy-efficient hot water heater. Replacing asphalt shingle roofing with expensive Spanish tile or cedar shake roofing. Replacing $4 per yard standard carpeting with $16 per yard plush Antron 4 carpeting. Remember, the difference is deductible. If you upgrade a part of your home that does not need repairing, the entire cost may be considered an improvement. Improvement expenses include all labor that is not your own or your spouse's. Making a home improvement does provide you with a great opportunity to use the family tax strategy, hire your children and grandchildren. You may not be able to deduct the work you personally do on your home, but you can hire your children and grandchildren to help with the work and deduct the amounts paid to them. Take the tax deduction for improvements on Schedule 2119 when you sell your home. Keep receipts for all of your home improvements.
Strategy 5-61. Deduct last-minute pre-sale fix-up expenses.
Before you sell a home, there are usually repairs and fix-up expenses ranging from a few hundred to several $1,000s. They're all necessary to get your home in saleable condition. Any normally non-deductible repairs that you make within a 90-day period before you sell your home are tax deductible on Tax Form 2119, Line 8.
Strategy 5-62. Use the tax deferral option to avoid taxes when you sell your home.
Congress has passed special rules for homeowners that make it possible to enjoy huge cash profits from the sale of your personal residence without becoming liable for immediate taxes. In order to qualify for the homeowner's tax deferral, you must buy or build another personal residence of equal or greater value within 24 months of the sale of your first home.
Now, the 24-month purchase period of the new home can begin before or after the sale of your current home, so you actually enjoy a 48-month qualifying period. Using the homeowner's tax deferral rules means that you pay no taxes now, but you still must report your profit by using Tax Form 2119. That means that the cost basis of your new home is reduced by the amount of the profit from the sale of your first home. Therefore, if you sell a home sometime in the future and not buy another home that qualifies for the homeowner's tax deferral, you would be liable for taxes on all of those accumulated profits. Your strategy, therefore, is to always own a home and buy a more expensive home each time you sell. All of the equity you accumulate from home to home is tax sheltered as long as you use this strategy. If the new home you buy is less expensive than the sale price of your old home, you must claim the difference as taxable profit. The difference is taxable in the year your new home is purchased. Let's say you sell your home, which cost you $70,000, but you sell it for $90,000 and then decide to buy a condo for $85,000. Your profit on the sale is $20,000. How much can you defer using the homeowner's deferral rules? Well, since the purchase price of the new residence is $5,000 less than the sale price of your previous home, you must claim the $5,000 as taxable profit this year. Therefore, $15,000, or $20,000 minus the $5,000 taxable, is the amount you can defer from taxes. If because of separation or divorce, you sell your home and split the profits with your ex-spouse, you are only required to buy a home costing half as much as the one you sold. If you don't buy another home within 24 months, you will be liable for taxes on the profits of the home you sold, plus any deferred profits from the sale of previous homes you've owned.
Strategy 5-63, don't invest the profits from the sale of your old home into your new home.
To qualify for the homeowner's tax deferral, you are not required to reinvest any of your profit from the sale of your old home into the new home, but only to buy a home of equal or greater value. When you sell your home, use the profits in a powerful investment program that will earn you more interest than you would pay on a home mortgage. Buy your new home, therefore, using as big of a mortgage as possible. Now let's look at the home sale of Martin and Marie Jones of Kansas City to see how the tax deferral process actually works. The Joneses sell their home for $110,000. 8 years ago, they bought it for $65,000. They fixed up their home, and that cost about $1,000 right before they sold it, and then they paid Jacob Realty $7,000 in commissions for selling their home. Their brand new home they're buying cost $120,000, so using the homeowner's tax deferral rules, there is zero taxable gain on the sale of their own home. They are able to defer or postpone the taxes on their profit of $38,000, which is $110,000 sale price, minus $7,000 in commissions, minus the $65,000 cost. That's where the $38,000 cash profit comes from. Look at Tax Form 2119 in your manual, and you'll see how the Joneses report the transaction involving the sale of their old residence and the purchase of their new residence. On their new $120,000 home, the Joneses can either make a down payment using the $38,000 profit from their first home, or they could make a minimum down payment of $12,000. In either case, the fixed interest rate on the mortgage would be 10%. What should they do? The correct strategy in real estate is to maximize your cash available for more liquid investments. Real estate ties up your money long term. The Joneses should take the $26,000 difference in the down payments and invest the money in mutual funds or discounted mortgages that will return 20% or more. The difference in mortgage payments can be made using part of that investment income. At a 20% investment return, the $26,000 will generate $5,200, while $26,000 extra mortgage amount will cost only $2,600 per year in tax-deductible interest.
Strategy 5-64, create a deductible office at home.
Unknowledgeable tax preparers will tell you that establishing a business office in your home will either flag you for an audit or cause you to be taxed on the home office deductions when you sell your home. Both premises are false. In his first term of office, President Reagan stressed the importance of the free enterprise system and encouraged regulations that would make it easier to begin a small business with little or no red tape. At the same time, he pressured the IRS to reverse its position on home businesses and allow tax deductions without hassle for the expenses involved. Since 1982, the IRS has reversed many of its positions relative to a tax-deductible office in the home. But most people, including many tax professionals, are not aware of the positive changes that have taken place. Let's go over one by one the current rules for how you can make an office in your home tax deductible. Number one, items you may deduct for an office in your home include utilities, repairs, maintenance, improvements, decorating, insurance. If you own the property, you may deduct a portion of the depreciation. If you are a tenant, you may deduct a portion of the rent. Number two, to take the deduction for the office in the home, you must meet any one of the following conditions. Your home office is the primary office for your business, and you don't have another office in the same city or area. You may not claim a deduction for an office in the home if you are a realtor or a professional with another office, or if you have office space in a rental, shop, warehouse, or plant. Teachers may not claim a deduction for an office in the home, even if they grade papers or talk to students at home. The second activity that allows you to deduct the office in the home is if you regularly see clients or patients in your home. The third activity that makes your home office deductible, you take care of children in your home or conduct home parties or sales meetings for your multi-level marketing business. Now, if you have an office in your home which is the primary and only office you use on behalf of an employer, you can still take the deduction. Number three, you may also take tax deductions if you rent out a room or rooms in your home to college students or tenants. Number four, you must use the area you call your office regularly and exclusively for business, although it does not have to be a separate room. You may also deduct an area you use exclusively for a workshop or storage, such as your garage or attic. The IRS has denied the deduction to those who use their office area for other purposes, such as watching television or storage of personal items. The IRS will normally not ask to visit your home for inspection, but you will want to follow the correct procedures. Number five, you may compute the deductible percentage of your expenses in one of two ways. Choose the method that gives you the greatest tax deduction. Method one, divide the number of rooms you use for tax-deductible purposes by the total number of rooms in your home or apartment, not counting bathrooms. 1 out of 5 rooms used for a deductible purpose would give you, therefore, a 20% deduction. Method number two, divide the square footage of the area you use for a tax-deductible purpose by the number of square feet in your home or apartment. Example, a 2,000 square foot home with a 400 square foot area set aside for a deductible purpose would give you the same 20% as we discussed before. Number 6, since you already have deducted interest on your home mortgage and property taxes as personal tax deductions, you must reduce your total home office deductions by the amount of personal deductions you have already taken for the amount of that area. See IRS Publication 334 for the exact formula. Number 7, your tax deduction is limited to the total amount of income your business earned during the year, minus the personal deductions you've already taken. An office area in the home is one of the few business deductions you can take only if you have income from your small business. Number 8, you're not penalized for home office deductions when you sell your home, provided you do not have an office or business area in your home the year you sell. Get rid of your home office the year before you intend to sell your home, and you keep all of your deductions. Up to 1982, if you took the depreciation deduction, you would not be able to defer the entire profit from the sale of your home if you bought another home. You may, under the current tax law, defer the entire profit, even when you have an office in the home.
Strategy 5-65, take the once-per-lifetime $125,000 tax exclusion to save as much as $40,000 in taxes.
You can create your own tax-free retirement program using your home in a special tax exemption created by Congress. Once you or your spouse reach age 55 and sell your home, you may elect to exclude from taxes up to $125,000 of the accumulated profits. The full exclusion, if you're in the 33% tax bracket, will save you over $40,000 in taxes. Your strategy, therefore, is to apply the homeowner's tax deferral rules from home to home until you or your spouse are over age 55. When you sell after 55, use Form 2119 to permanently tax exempt up to $125,000 of the accumulated profits. To qualify, you must have lived in the home for any 3 out of the 5 previous years before you sell. You may use the exclusion as an individual or as a couple only once per lifetime. If you and the person you're planning to marry are over age 55 and both own homes, you would be smart to both take the exclusion by selling your homes and making your profits tax exempt before you marry. Use Tax Form 2119, Part 2 to claim your exemption. Since the exemption can be used only once per lifetime, you should continue to use the homeowner's deferral rules from home to home until you have accumulated close to the $125,000 exemption limit. Let's look at an example. Jim and Ellen Turner are both over age 55, and they decide to sell their home. They get $225,000. Since they've accumulated over $125,000 in equity or profit, they decide to take the once-per-lifetime exclusion. Look in your manual at Tax Form 2119, and you'll see exactly how they or you should take the exclusion and notify IRS. Vacation and leisure time activities always cost money. But from my own experience, I can assure you that you can easily reduce the cost of owning and operating recreational assets by up to 30% by making your boat, plane, or your motorhome legally tax deductible. There are 2 uses of recreational assets that qualify them for tax deductions. The first is direct use in a small business, and the second we call third-party leasing.
Strategy 5-66. Use your boat, plane, or motorhome in your small business to create tax deductions.
What is now a hobby, flying, fishing, or sailing, can be turned into a tax-deductible small business enterprise simply by showing the intent to make a profit. The tax code stipulates that assets used in a business that contribute directly to the production of income are tax-deductible even if you own them personally. However, entertainment expenses when using your boat, plane, or motorhome, such as food, cleanup, and fuel, are deductible as business expenses, but don't make the depreciation on these assets deductible. Depreciation is deductible if you find a business use other than entertainment. Now here's a good example. My friend Tom lives and breathes fishing. He would rather fish than eat, except for eating fish, of course. And year after year, weekend after weekend, he trailers his 23-foot Seacraft behind his Ford van from his home in Richmond, Virginia, to the fertile fishing grounds of the Chesapeake Bay, over 100 miles away. Continually pouring money into gas, maintenance, fishing tackle, and motel expenses left Tom feeling as if he was working for his boat instead of the other way around. One day, while bobbing about in 2-foot swells, Tom and I began to discuss what he could legally do to be able to take tax deductions for some of his expenses. Tom was already selling his catch of sea bass and bluefish to local restaurants, often at a handsome profit, which meant that he truly was in a tax-deductible business. He never even thought of taking the deductions. Tom also wrote to manufacturers of fishing rods, reels, and lures to see if he could become a distributor and received several enthusiastic replies, especially from the smaller companies. He was excited and well on his way. He bought several samples at wholesale, 50% off, and began to show them to fellow fishermen. He used his boat to house, display, and demonstrate his new line of fishing equipment. Not only has Tom picked up some unexpected income from his venture, his expensive hobby has now become a personally and financially rewarding tax-deductible small business. Let's look at how Tom benefited the first year alone from his fishing-related business. His boat cost $26,000, and he spent $4,000 in payments that year, but he received a tax deduction for $6,500 based on 50% business use. His boat fuel and van fuel were also deductible based on 50% business use, so he got another $1,350 deduction for that. Sample costs, $750, 100% deductible. Cost of the van, $12,000, and based on 50% business use, Tom took a $3,000 deduction, even though he only spent a couple of $1,000s in payments. His motels and food were also 50% deductible, giving Tom another $1,400 deduction. Total deductions, $13,000. Total cash spent that year, $11,250. Because Tom is in the 40% tax bracket, that's 33% federal and 7% state, he received an additional refund of $5,200 in his refund check. That's 40% of his $13,000 deduction. Now that significantly reduced the cost of his former hobby. Tom takes the deductions, and you will too, on Schedule C and Tax Form 4562. Let's look at another example of how to make your recreational assets deductible. Bart, a member of my organization, always loved flying, but didn't feel he could afford to own a plane. He estimated that he could buy a used four-seater Cessna for a little over $20,000. Even though the cost of fuel and maintenance was slightly out of his budget at the time, Bart reasoned that if he could make a good part of his expenses tax deductible, he could afford the plane immediately. Bart combined his interest in flying with another interest, photography, and started the small business he calls Aerial Photos by Bart. Printed brochures and business cards, contacted realtors, the Chamber of Commerce, and the City Planning Commission about his new venture. He also ran ads in the classified section of the newspaper offering to give guided air tours for new families moving into the area. For this, of course, he was required to get an additional license. His weekend part-time business is thriving, and Bart was able to convert two hobbies into a fun and profitable business. Most of all, he was able to afford his dream of owning his own plane. There are countless ways to use recreational assets in a small business and take advantage of the tax deductions and profit potential. Here are a few ideas. Using your plane for flying lessons, sailing lessons on your sailboat, chartered fishing trips on your fishing boat, water skiing lessons using your boat and tax-deductible skis, using your motorhome as the principal office for your small business or to display products or services, using your motorhome as a traveling billboard with your ad painted on the side. You may also deduct the business use percentage of the interest you pay on your loan to purchase your recreational assets, since business, but not personal interest, is tax deductible.
Strategy 5-67, use third-party leasing to make recreational assets deductible.
A second method of making your recreational assets deductible and depreciable is third-party leasing, which means offering your boat, motorhome, or airplane for rent at fair market rental value, using someone other than yourself as the leasing agent. Why not just rent it yourself? Well, the IRS has ruled that if you attempt to rent your recreational assets yourself, your deductions are limited to twice the amount of time the asset is actually rented. If you rented the asset 4 weeks per year, even though it was available for rent all year, your deduction for depreciation and other expenses would be limited to 8 weeks instead of 52. When you're renting through a third party, which means another company normally engaged in the business of leasing, your recreational asset is considered to be used for business purposes the entire time the asset is available for rent, whether rented or not. Use the asset for 2 weeks per year yourself and it is available for rent the balance of 50 weeks, you would be allowed 11 and a half months, or 23/24 of the total available tax deductions, including asset expensing and depreciation. Leasing agents can be found for boats at most marinas, for planes at flight services or at the FBO at any airport, and for motorhomes in the yellow pages under motorhomes, renting and leasing. Of course, if your boat or motorhome means so much to you that you just don't want anybody else to use it, you'll have to pay the bills yourself. If you operate your leasing activity as an investor, your current deductions will be limited by the passive investment rules, meaning you can claim deductions only each year up to the amount of your passive income. If you, however, are active in your leasing business, approving all leases, formulating a business plan, contracting for maintenance, doing regular inspections, and keeping the business records yourself, you would qualify to take the deductions, including depreciation, against current income. One of IRS's tests is that you spend at least 2 hours a week managing your small business or leasing business. Even with the passive loss rules, you may use the current tax deductions to tax shelter up to 100% of your leasing income. Take the deductions and show your income on Tax Schedule C.
Strategy 5-68, deduct the interest on your boat or motorhome as a second home.
The new tax rules allow you to deduct the mortgage interest on both a first and second personal residence up to $1 million of total acquisition cost, the cost of buying the properties. And normally we think of a home as bricks and wood on a stationary concrete foundation. However, the writers of tax reform chose to define a home as almost anything with living quarters. Why then wouldn't the definition include a sailboat, yacht, or a motorhome with living quarters? It does, at least until someone decides to change the law. Living quarters include a galley or kitchen, bathroom facilities, and sleeping quarters. The boat or motorhome you own or buy fits this definition. Deduct the loan interest on Tax Schedule A, line 9A or 9B.
Section 6, Small Business Strategy.
Without a doubt, one of the most powerful of all the tax strategies is starting your own small business. There are many benefits that you can achieve through a small business. Let's list some of them. A sense of accomplishment, the desire for wealth or greater income, a sense of freedom and independence, an opportunity to be creative, a chance to meet people, a chance to turn your work into fun, a chance to be your own boss and stop working for others, an opportunity to transform personal expenses into legitimate tax deductions.
Strategy 6-1. Turn any small business into a tremendous tax shelter.
A business can be part-time or full-time, require a large capital investment or no investment at all. Business can have no employees or many employees and can be run out of a home, apartment, retail store, or an office. The small business strategy should be considered by everyone who works for somebody else or who is retired. The possibilities are endless, and so are the financial opportunities and benefits, if you understand the rules. A small business, even run part-time from home, can create $6,000 to $10,000 of tax shelter every year, no matter how profitable your business is or isn't. In a small business, the personal things you own and do become fully or partially tax deductible. To emphasize the importance of a small business as part of your overall tax strategy, in your manual is a list of what can become deductible through your small business that is not normally deductible. Let's take a look at some of the items on this list. Things you own and do that become deductible with a small business: an automobile or van, automobile expenses, gas, insurance, parking, interest on loans for assets used in your business, your home, your children, your spouse, your boat, your motorhome or airplane, your home computer, your domestic and foreign travel, health or a country club membership, entertainment, videotape recorder, income from your job or investments, books and subscriptions, educational audio and videotape courses, your calculator, your typewriter, your cassette recorder, even repairs to your equipment, your utilities and telephone at home, gifts to customers, and investment in a small business retirement plan. Go over the list in your manual and check those things that you now take as a tax deduction, and check those things that you would like to have as tax deductions. Because these deductions are just a sampling of the tax power of operating a small business. If you're not getting tax deductions for these expenses, plan to start a small business immediately, even part-time. If you have a small business or if you're a professional, there are strategies and tax techniques that we will cover that your tax advisors never told you about. For those who are beginners, we'll first concentrate on starting a part-time business. You'll discover how to make your life legally tax deductible through the small business tax umbrella. If you already own your own small business,
Use the strategies in this chapter as your business tax strategy checklist. When you have a small business, almost every related business activity becomes legally tax deductible, even if you derive pleasure or fun in the process. If the business initially generates little income, it may still generate hundreds or thousands of dollars of tax deductions, which can be used to shelter income from your job, your investments, or even your retirement plan.
Strategy 6-2, begin a small business as a sole proprietorship instead of a corporation.
The easiest form of business to create is called a sole proprietorship. That is, you or your spouse doing business. You use your Social Security number as the business ID for tax purposes. You don't even have to report to the IRS that you are a business until you file Schedule C the following year. Most at-home part-time businesses should start as sole proprietorships. The cost of incorporating and the paperwork involved are not worth the expense of incorporating when you're just beginning. As your business grows and becomes highly profitable, you can then consider incorporation. An inexpensive small business liability policy will protect you from personal liability.
Strategy 6-4, operate your activity as a business, not a hobby.
A business, according to the IRS, is an activity conducted on a regular basis with the intent to make a profit. But you're not required to make a profit in order to claim the tax deductions. In order to be a business, you must have a product or service which you offer regularly to the public. For tax purposes, you are a business if you sell a product or service, whether you actually call yourself a business or not. Intent to make a profit is what differentiates a business from a hobby. A hobby is an activity that may produce income, but is operated primarily for pleasure without the intent of making a profit. As a business, you may deduct all of your ordinary and necessary operating expenses, no matter how great or small your income. If you have more income during the year than expenses, the difference is your taxable profit. If you have more expenses than income, the difference is your tax loss. With a hobby, you may deduct your expenses, but only up to the amount of your business income. Therefore, with a hobby, there can be no loss for tax purposes. You show your intent to operate as a business by doing these things: talking regularly to potential or actual customers and keeping a list, opening a separate bank account, keeping good records of income and expenses, printing business cards and flyers or brochures, and using the business startup checklist to get your business off and running in the shortest possible time. Now let's take a look in your manual at the business startup checklist. Notice how we get our business started. Call IRS and ask them to send you Publication 334, Tax Guide for Small Business. Then choose a business idea based on your interest, abilities, and the amount of time you want to spend. You'll see a list of almost 75 different ideas for small businesses in your manual, things that other members of the organization have done. You need to choose a business form. We said that sole proprietorship is the simplest. Set up your business record-keeping system, go down to any office supply store, and get a simple record-keeping book. Choose a business name. In most states, you're not required to file under the fictitious name statute if you use your own name in the name of the business. Set up an interest-bearing checking account. One of the best, of course, is the asset management accounts you'll learn about later. Print business cards and flyers. Start offering your product or services for sale to friends and others immediately, and learn everything you can about business from books, magazines, tape courses, seminars, and trade publications, and get the business educational materials from the Small Business Administration and certainly through your membership in the Charles J. Gibbons Organization. One of the best programs ever written about small business is available from the organization for those who are serious about small business, written by Caleb McAfee and called Starting Your Own Small Business. The most important thing is have fun with your business. It's only work if you don't like what you're doing.
Strategy 6-5, show a profit 3 out of 5 years to qualify for continuing tax deductions.
An activity is automatically considered a business if it produces a profit in any 3 out of 5 years. Many taxpayers, as well as tax professionals, incorrectly believe that the 3 out of 5 year rule means that if your business is still showing an operating loss after 2 years, you automatically lose all future tax deductions. That is not true. The first 2 years are considered the ruling period in determining whether your activity is a business or a hobby, and are used by the IRS as a guideline only. At the end of 2 years, if you're still showing a loss, you can use one of the following many strategies. Number 1, work hard to show a profit during the next 3 years and use the 3 profitable years as the beginning of the next ruling period. Alternative 2, file an IRS form called Automatic Extension of Ruling Period, which gives you an automatic extra year in which to show a profit. Alternative 3, start another business. After all, this is America. When you start another business, your ruling period starts over. Alternative 4, continue to run your business at a loss, but be prepared to show the IRS that you have the intent to make a profit and have a reasonable chance of eventually doing so. And you can do this by putting together a written business plan. Alternative 5, choose a business activity such as timber or breeding, which has a 5-year instead of a 3-year initial ruling period. Number 6, continue your activity, but as a hobby, taking deductions only up to the level of your income. Number 7, close the business. You still keep your tax deductions. There are so many myths and misunderstandings about how to start and run a business, and this confusion prevents many people from ever getting started. So the next step will look at business facts and fantasy. You don't need to operate your business full-time or to incorporate to take the tax deductions. There are no requirements regarding how much money you must invest in your business or that you must invest any money at all. If you're a sole proprietorship, you do not need a tax ID number. Your Social Security number will suffice as long as you have 3 employees or less. You're allowed to take tax deductions on assets you buy and use in your small business, even if you buy the assets on credit. If you use assets part-time in a business, you may deduct a part of the cost. Investments such as real estate do not fall under the 3 out of 5 year profit rule, but real estate should be treated as an investment and not as a small business. Managing your own investments or collectibles is not considered a business, but it does qualify you for investment tax deductions. Having a small business does not flag your return for audit, as some tax preparers claim. You may claim more tax deductions than income. Your automobile or other asset does not have to be in a business name in order to become deductible. Record keeping and tax forms for a small business are easy. You don't need any special licenses or permits before you can take tax deductions.
Strategy 6-7, begin marketing immediately to make business startup costs deductible this year.
Business startup costs that you incur prior to marketing a product or service must be deducted or amortized over a 5-year period at 20% per year. Expenses you incur after your business begins are fully deductible in the year you spend the money. Begin marketing your product or service right now to establish the starting date of your business. All expenses will then be deductible in the current year.
Strategy 6-8, hire your spouse and create a deductible IRA.
You can create up to a $2,000 tax deduction each year by hiring your non-working spouse to work in your small business and using your spouse's salary to open a fully deductible IRA account. Your spouse will qualify for the IRA even if you don't, as long as your spouse's total income is under $10,000. Let's look at an example. George is a salesman for a small sportswear company which has no retirement plan. He contributes to a company retirement plan each year, but would like to be able to contribute $2,000 to an IRA for his wife, Sally. George hires Sally to do his paperwork and filing and help him with the correspondence, and George pays her by check $300 per month. George pays no additional taxes, nor does Sally, since they file jointly. What is income to Sally is a deduction for George, and Sally puts the first $2,000 she earns into an IRA, saving the family over $600 a year in taxes. Under tax reform, your spouse may contribute $2,000 to an IRA if he or she earns less than $10,000, even if you do not qualify. There are other benefits as well. When you employ your spouse, certain everyday expenses become tax deductible. business expenses such as life insurance, health insurance, tuition for job-related education, and job-related travel and entertainment. You can also hire parents or other adult family members. Ted's father, Ben, resides in a nursing home. Now, Ben's only disability involves physical limitations of his legs. In addition to the money from Ben's Social Security check, Ted used to pay the nursing home $500 per month or $6,000 per year, none of which was tax deductible. So Ted started a small mail order business in his home and hired his father to stuff and address 500 envelopes per week. Ted now pays Ben $500 each month for the work, and Ben pays his own $500 monthly nursing home expenses. Ted now has a $6,000 yearly tax deduction, and Ben derives a sense of real worth by actively participating in his son's business venture. Ben is within the Social Security earnings limit and pays no taxes, therefore, on the income.
Strategy 6-10. Hire your children and grandchildren and make allowances and gifts deductible.
If you have or start a small business, even part-time, you can hire your children or grandchildren and turn non-deductible allowances, gifts, and expensive handouts into tax-deductible salaries. Depending on their ages, the kids can perform any number of tasks, including cleaning the business office, washing the business automobile, answering the phone when you're away, stuffing and addressing envelopes, keeping track of inventory, delivering products, running business errands, entering data on the computer. You can pay deductible salaries to children to perform jobs either for your small business or to help you in your regular employment. Children are not required to file a tax return if they earn less than $3,000. Give your family employee a 1099 form at the end of the year. Use IRS Circular E as your guide. Now, if you pay 2 children or grandchildren salaries of $20 per week each for 3 or 4 hours of work, instead of giving them non-deductible allowances, gifts, and handouts, you have created a $2,000 per year legal tax deduction. The money the kids can earn can be used for school lunches, clothes, entertainments, investments, or even an IRA. As an example, hire your 2 kids to work in your small business, pay them each $20 per week. $10 is used for their entertainment allowances. $10 goes into an investment account in their name. Your tax deduction is the amount you pay the children, $2,080 a year. In your 30% tax bracket, that would save you $624 of cash. Think of it. The kids are involved, having fun, learning responsibility, and you're pocketing over $600 a year from the tax savings. Does the IRS frown on hiring family members? Not at all. The procedures and rules for hiring family members are well established in tax law and make hiring family members less troublesome than hiring other employees. Let's look at the rules that qualify you for family member tax deductions. Number 1, the family members must do the work for which they are paid. It would not be honest to pay a family member for work not performed simply to claim a tax deduction. Number 2, you pay a family member a deductible salary of up to the amount you would have to pay a non-family member to do the same job. The pay cannot be excessive for the work performed. Squelch any tendency to overpay a family member in order to claim a greater tax deduction. Someone outside the family must be paid a minimum wage, so no matter how menial the job, minimum wage is not unreasonable. Number 3, salaries paid to children under 18 are not subject to Social Security tax. Number 4, no federal income tax withholding is required if the family member is paid less than $3,000 per year. Number 5, you are not required to pay federal unemployment insurance on family members. Number 6, salaries are treated as tax-deductible wages by you as the employer and as taxable income by your family member employees. You lose the tax advantages if you pay wages to a family member who is in a higher tax bracket than you are. Number 7, the pay must be periodic. Pay family members by check at least once a month, as you would any employee. If you were to pay a year's worth of wages in the last month of the year, it would look very suspicious to the IRS. If you pay by cash, have someone else keep a written record of the payments.
Strategy 6-11. Beat the kiddie tax with a children's IRA.
Under tax reform, the first $500 per year of investment income for children is not taxed at all. The next $500 is taxed at 11%, and any balance above $1,000 is taxed at the parent's high tax rate. That's if the children are less than 14 years old. These new rules make it difficult to build a college fund or to transfer investments and assets to your children and grandchildren. Salaries you pay your children can help circumvent the so-called kiddie tax if you put the money in an IRA. Even though a child does not pay taxes on a salary unless the salary is over $3,000, any earnings of over $1,000 per year from the investment of the salary will be taxed at the parent's rate. You can beat the new rule by opening an IRA account for your child. There is no age limit on an IRA, but the money must come from employment. Since IRAs are tax deferrals and have no current taxable income, the child may earn over $1,000 from IRA investments with no taxes. The money compounds completely tax-free until it's withdrawn. There is a 10% penalty on any withdrawal from an IRA before age 59 and a half. But that equals only 6 months' earnings if the IRA is invested at 20% a year, like in the strategies I'll teach you later. You can build a $50,000 college education fund by depositing only $2,000 for each of 9 years in the child's IRA and using any of the 20% per year investment strategies you will learn about later. There is a double tax deduction. Parents get the salary deduction, and the child gets the IRA deduction. Over the years, I've seen families become incredibly creative with these strategies. A few years ago, a young couple approached me after a workshop wanting to start their own small business and hire their son. Unfortunately, the son was only 7 months old, barely old enough to walk and talk, let alone work. Many months later, I saw the couple again, and they were just beaming. "Well, we've done it," they told me. "We now employ our son in our small business." Well, naturally, my curiosity was piqued, and I said, "What can a toddler that age possibly do for a living?" After your lecture, they told me, we went to a baby furniture store and got the owner to agree to let us sell his baby furniture for a commission at home parties. That's our small business. We pay our son $40 a week to model the cribs and bassinets. The $2,000 per year salary to the child is tax deductible, and they are putting the money away in an IRA account. The couple achieved 2 objectives: funding their child's education and creating a $2,000 per year tax deduction in the process. Because they're in the 28% tax bracket, they're actually saving $560 per year in taxes. The child pays no taxes because the money is a salary and invested in the child's IRA.
Strategy 6-12, pay your child a salary of up to $3,000 and still claim a dependency exemption.
Each exemption for a dependent you claim on your tax return is worth $1,950 beginning in 1989. That will save you up to $650 in taxes. The new standard deduction rules, which replace the old zero bracket amount, let a child earn up to $3,000 of salary income without you losing the child as a dependent. If you claim your child as a dependent, he cannot claim himself. You, as the person in the higher tax bracket, should claim the dependency exemption for your children.
Strategy 6-13, use your automobile in your small business to make it deductible.
Because your automobile represents one of your largest personal expenses, it is also one of your biggest potential tax deductions. One of 12 methods of making your automobile deductible is to use it in your small business. If you use your automobile 100% of the time for business, 100% of the mileage or expense is deductible. The 100% rule would apply to a 2-car family who allocates 1 car for personal use and the second, usually more expensive car, for business. If you use one automobile for both personal and business purposes, you must allocate by percentage the amount of deductible business use and non-deductible personal use. For example,
55% business use, 45% personal use. By putting a permanent advertisement on the side of your car, you increase the percentage of your deductible business use up to 80% or more.
Strategy 6-14, choose the automobile deduction methods that give you the greatest deduction.
There are two methods of deducting an automobile used in your business. Let's look at both. Method 1. You may deduct the cost of the automobile through asset expensing and depreciation. We'll talk about those in a moment. Plus, you may deduct operating expenses, including gas, cleaning, insurance, interest, licenses, parking, maintenance, taxes, tires, tolls, plus interest on your automobile loan. Method 2. You may use the standard mileage rate in lieu of depreciation and some operating expenses. The IRS standard mileage rate deduction is 22 cents per mile for the first 15,000 business miles and 11 cents per mile for anything over 15,000 business miles. In addition to the standard mileage rate, you may deduct interest, property taxes, parking, and tolls. Once you have chosen the deduction method you wish to use, you may not change the method for the life of the car. Compute your tax deduction using both methods. Use Tax Form 2106 as your worksheet, but take the deductions on Schedule C and the depreciation for the actual expense method on Tax Form 4562. You may use whichever method gives you the greatest deduction, and it usually is the actual expense method. Tax preparers often choose the mileage rate method because it's easier to compute. Always compute the deduction both ways yourself.
Strategy 6-15, estimate your auto expense deduction using the mileage rate method.
If you have not kept accurate records of your operating costs, you may still claim an estimated deduction of your auto expenses using the mileage rate method, provided you have a record of trips taken, potential or actual customers contacted, and the business purpose of your trip.
Strategy 6-16, buy an automobile instead of leasing.
You're usually better off buying than leasing a business automobile if you make it tax deductible. Leasing allows you to write off only the business percentage of the lease payment. Owning allows you to use the asset expensing and depreciation deductions, which will usually be greater than the lease deductions. Automobiles are now depreciated over 5 years using the MACRS method. That stands for Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System. It's a government mouthful. Depreciation on this method actually extends into the 6th year because of what we call the half-year convention, which we'll explain later. As a shortcut in determining the maximum amount of your automobile deduction, use the table in your manual and Tax Form 4562. Apply the amounts in the table against the declining business depreciation basis of the automobile. Let's look at what we're talking about. Refer to the table in your manual. The dollar figure in the lower of column represents the maximum annual depreciation meant to keep owners of luxury cars from overdoing their deductions. If a percentage of your car is used for business, for example 60%, your first year limit would be 60% of the $2,560 shown, or a maximum of $1,536. You must use your automobile more than 50% of the time for business in order to use the MACRS method. Otherwise, the straight line method must be used. In addition, the operating costs and business portion of the interest on your car loan are also deductible. Because of the elimination of tax credits under tax reform, leasing companies, usually set up as investor tax shelters, are being forced to raise their rates. By substituting longer lease periods, for example, 5 years instead of 3, the lease company makes your payments look smaller, but it would cost you additional thousands to get out of the lease if you wanted to get rid of the car. You're stuck with that car for the lease term, whether you want it or not.
Strategy 6-17, use your personal assets in your business to make them deductible.
Using your personal assets and equipment such as a home computer, videotape recorder, cassette recorder, calculator, tools, or furniture in your small business will make these assets deductible. If you already own the assets when you began using them in your small business, your tax deduction is computed by depreciating the entire cost or market value, whichever is less, over a 5-year period using the MACRS method. And that's based on the percentage of time you use your assets for business. If you buy an asset and begin using it immediately in your business, even part-time, you may use the asset expensing rules discussed later to deduct up to a maximum of $10,000 in the current year, and then depreciate any balance of the cost over the 5-year recovery period, including the current year as the first year of the recovery period. To use the asset expensing rules, you must use the equipment at least 50% of the time in your business. The rest can be personal. It's important to understand the difference between personal and business use. Here are some examples. Your computer is used for business when used for record keeping, business projections, or computing your business tax deductions. Your videotape recorder is used for business when you buy or rent videotapes that relate to any phase of your business. Your video camera is deductible if you use it at conventions, lectures, for practicing sales presentations, or in any other way that relates to your business. Computer and video supplies are fully deductible when used for business purposes. The furniture in your business office, whether at home or at a separate location, is deductible. Your typewriter, filing cabinet, calculator, or cassette recorder are also deductible.
Strategy 6-18, calculate your deduction based on the percentage of business use.
Any tools or equipment are deductible when used, even part-time for a business purpose, such as musical instruments used in a band, a lathe and a drill press in a home woodworking shop, a sewing machine used to make quilts or other items to sell, a steam cleaning machine used in a part-time carpet cleaning business, cameras and darkroom equipment used in a photography business. Your tax deduction is computed based on the percentage of time you use the equipment for business. For instance, here we have a videotape recorder, video camera, home computer, office furniture, tools and equipment, and a typewriter. Total cost, $6,350. Business use ranges on these items from 60% to 100%. Maximum deduction would be $5,250. If your federal plus state tax bracket is 40%, using the previous list as an example, your total cash savings would be $2,100, or 40% of the maximum deduction of $5,250. You spent $6,350 on the assets, and the government returned to you $2,100 cash. You saved 40% of the cost because of the tax deductions. You have therefore recovered in cash 40% of the total cost of some of your major purchases.
Strategy 6-19, use the asset expensing rules for immediate deductions on the assets you buy.
Section 179 of the Internal Revenue Code says you may treat the first $10,000 of assets you buy each year and use in your business as a currently deductible expense instead of as a capital expenditure, which would be subject to the long-term depreciation rules. This process is called asset expensing. The choice is yours, but unless you don't need the deductions at all, you will want to use the following asset expensing rules instead of depreciating. Number 1, the total amount to be expensed cannot exceed $10,000 in 1 year. Number 2, the assets must be placed in service, that means used in your small business, not just purchased that year. Number 3, if you place in service more than $200,000 of assets, you lose the asset expensing benefits. That means the asset expensing rules were designed to benefit small businesses only. The total amount you can expense using Section 179 is limited to the taxable income of the business, not counting the Section 179 deduction. If your business is showing a loss, you may still take the deduction as depreciation. You may carry any unused expensing deductions forward to the next year. Number 5, if you file separately, you and your spouse are still limited to the maximum of $10,000. Number 6, the asset expensing deduction for an automobile cannot exceed $2,560. The balance must be depreciated. Number 7, if you use the asset for both personal and business use, you are eligible to expense the business portion, provided the business percentage is greater than 50%. Number 8, you may use asset expensing only in the year you place the property in service. Number 9, each asset is treated separately, and you must specify on Tax Form 4562, called Depreciation and Amortization, which items you intend to expense. Number 10, you cannot amend your previous tax returns after the due date to change depreciation to expensing. Number 11, you can use asset expensing on any depreciable non-real estate property used in your business with a life of 3 or more years. Number 12, you cannot use asset expensing on property held as or used in investments. Number 13, asset expensing is in lieu of depreciation for that portion of an asset that you choose to expense. Number 14, if the usage of an asset you expense drops below 50% business use any time during the property's normal recovery period, you would have to add the deduction you took to your income for the year. Use Form 4797, Gains and Losses from Business Assets. You can then claim the lost expensing deductions as depreciation up to the depreciation limits. Number 15, if you're in a partnership or S Corp, each partner or stockholder can claim up to the $10,000 limit from the same business. Number 16, for additional information on asset expensing, refer to IRS Publications 334 and 534. Your strategy is to find a legitimate business use for the assets you buy. As long as 50% of the use is for business, you may use the asset expensing rules for up to $10,000 in deductions every year.
Strategy 6-20, take depreciation deductions for assets you already own and use in a business.
Depreciation means deducting the cost of the business portion of an asset over the life or recovery period set by the IRS. It's a slower method of taking deductions than asset expensing, but gives you the same amount of overall deduction. To figure your depreciation deduction for an asset you use in your business, you must know, first, the basis. The basis is a measure of the value of an investment for tax purposes. Your original basis is usually the amount you paid for the property. As you depreciate an asset, your depreciation deduction reduces the basis. When you inherit or receive property as a gift, your basis is generally the market value when you receive the asset. Improvements increase the basis. If you convert personal property to business use, your basis is the fair market value of the property on the date you make the change. Number 2, date placed in service. The date you began using the property in your business determines the amount of depreciation deduction you get the first year. 3, 5, or 7-year recovery period assets are treated as if placed in service on July 1st, no matter when they were actually placed in service. Therefore, you get 1.5 year's depreciation deduction the first year. This formula is called the half-year convention. Real estate assets, on the other hand, are subject to a mid-month convention. Number 3, the recovery period. The recovery period is the number of years over which you must take your depreciation deductions. The shorter the recovery period, the more deductions you may take each year. In a small business, you are usually concerned with a recovery period for cars, computers, office equipment, and videotape recorders. All have a 5-year recovery period. Office furniture and fixtures have a 7-year recovery period. Look in your manual at the MACRS Depreciation Recovery Period table. This table will show you the recovery periods for depreciating other assets as well as those mentioned. Number 4, depreciation method. The depreciation method is the formula you choose, or in some cases must use, to determine the amount of depreciation deduction each year. For property placed in service from 1980 to 87, the Accelerated Cost Recovery System, what we called ACRS, was the standard. After tax reform, the standard is the MACRS, or Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System. Here's how the MACRS works. For property in the 3, 5, and 7-year recovery period classes, you use what we call the double declining balance formula. To determine your deduction, you divide the number 2 by the recovery period in years and multiply the quotient by the basis or cost of the property. Well, it'll become clearer when we use an example. For example, you want to depreciate your home computer, which cost you $4,000 and is used 100% of the time for your small business. Looking at our chart, we see that computers have a recovery period of 5 years. What would be your first year's depreciation deduction? We divide the number 2 by the 5-year recovery period, and that gives us 40%. So 40% would be deductible the first year. 40% of $4,000 is $1,600. Now, the second year we subtract $1,600 from $4,000 and take a deduction of 40% of the new basis. New basis would be $2,400. 40% would be $960. So $960 would be the amount of depreciation the second year. With a little bit of practice, this method will become very easy to understand and use.
Strategy 6-21. Convert to straight-line depreciation when more deductions will be generated by this method.
The amount of depreciation taken using the MACRS method drops each year. When the straight-line depreciation rate exceeds the double declining balance rate, you may choose to switch to the straight-line method for the remaining years. The straight-line depreciation method is the easiest to understand, since straight line means that the same amount of depreciation is taken each year for the life of the asset. Straight line is computed by dividing the basis by the number of years in the recovery period. There's a chart in your manual that will show you the double declining balance to use for 3, 5, and 7-year property and the year in which it is best to switch to the straight line method. For 3-year recovery period property, the declining balance percentage is 66.67%, and you switch in the third year. 5-year, as we saw in our example, it's 40% each year of the basis, and we switch to straight line in the fourth year. With 7-year property, our yearly depreciation percentage is 28.57%, and we switch to straight line in the fifth year. Review this part again if you have trouble being clear about what asset expensing and depreciation is all about.
Strategy 6-23. Use personal assets in your business to claim the sales tax deduction.
Beginning in 1987, the deduction of state and local sales taxes on personal purchases is no longer allowed. The sales tax is deductible, however, if you use the purchased items in your business or investments. Sales tax paid on business supplies is deductible that year as an expense. Sales tax paid to buy a capital asset, such as a car used in a business, is added to the basis and depreciated. For example, if you buy a $10,000 car in a state with a 6% sales tax and use it personally, the $600 tax is not deductible. If it is your second car that is used 80% for business, you add 80% of the $600 sales tax, or $480, to your basis for depreciation. Since an automobile is depreciated over 5 years, with 40% of the deduction taken the first year, the same 40% applies to the deductible sales tax.
Strategy 6-24. Use the simplified 90-day record method to allocate business and personal use of assets.
The new record-keeping requirements are not complicated. For home computers, video recorders, and cameras, the simplest, most effective system is to keep a pocket-sized spiral notebook by the equipment. You need only 3 columns on a page. Number 1, the date. Number 2, the amount of time used. And number 3, a code, which could be B for business or P for personal use. The IRS now allows you to keep the log for just 3 months, and if the percentage of business usage remains consistent, you may use that same percentage for the balance of the year without further record keeping. Before tax reform, Congress created a mandatory, adequate, contemporaneous record keeping rule that required you to keep detailed records of personal and business use for the entire year.
Since no one in Congress could spell it, let alone wanted to use it, finally the record-keeping rules were changed and simplified.
Strategy 6-25. Take deductions for repairs to business assets.
Repairs to assets are deductible when the assets are used even part-time in your business. When you use your assets only for personal reasons, your repairs and maintenance are not deductible.
Strategy 6-26. Create a deductible office in your home.
If you start a small business at home, use part of your home for a deductible office and or storage area.
Strategy 6-27. Make your social club, country club, and health club memberships deductible through business use.
If you use your club 50% of the time or more for business purposes, you may deduct the business percentage of the yearly dues. Initiation fees are not deductible, but entertainment expenses at the club are, subject, of course, to the 80% tax reform deductibility rule. Entertaining current or prospective clients is considered business use. The required record keeping is simple. Keep a club section in your appointment book that lists the dates you use your club and if the use was personal, business, or a combination. Also keep track of entertainment expenses such as drinks, green fees, tennis court fees, and meals. If you are prospecting for clients or customers, list the names of the people you talk to, whether they become customers or not. The dues deduction is taken under dues and subscriptions on Schedule C or other business tax forms. Entertaining deductions are taken under entertainment.
Strategy 6-28. Take deductions for your business-related books, magazines, newsletters, and tape courses.
Purchasing books, magazines, newsletters, or audio and video courses that relate to business makes these items tax deductible. Much of what you already read may be tax deductible if you start a small business. Here are some examples of worthwhile business-related publications which you can deduct. Magazines: Forbes, Time, Venture, Nation's Business, Money, Newsweek, Entrepreneur, and Fortune. Newsletters: the Charles J. Gibbons Financial Digest, the Kiplinger Washington Letter, the Kiplinger Tax Letter, the Decker Report on Public Speaking, Executive Wealth Advisory, Tax Hotline, the Long and Short Report. Those are just examples of deductible newsletters. Books. There are dozens of books currently available at your bookstore in the business and social sciences sections that relate to starting a business, business management, business ideas, marketing, advertising, accounting, record keeping, and success attitudes. These include Megatrends by John Nesbitt, What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School by Mark McCormick, Search of Excellence by Tom Peters, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, and dozens of other books which can be deductible since they relate to your business. Audio and video tape courses, seminars, and workshops are also deductible. High-impact adult education in the future will not be done in traditional classrooms spanning several years, weeks, or even evenings, but will use new types of media and meeting facilities. Keeping up and getting ahead is already being done at home with audio and video cassettes or in multi-million-dollar hotel meeting and conference rooms through seminars and workshops. When videotape courses, seminars, and workshops relate to your business or career or to your personal investments and taxes, the cost is deductible. There are many audio and videotape programs available from the Charles J. Gibbons Organization that are deductible, such as the Money Strategies Financial Library you're using now, the Bookshelf Lawyer, Building Wealth Without Cash, High Return Investments, Wealth Without Work, and How to Start Your Own Small Business are just a few of those items and programs that we publish.
Strategy 6-29. Take deductions for your business travel expenses.
Planning your trips or vacations around a legitimate business purpose makes your travel expenses tax deductible. What better way to travel than with tax savings covering part of the cost? When it comes to business travel deductions, a few simple IRS rules will keep you from being audited or losing the deductions. Although you may have as much personal fun as you wish on your trips, the primary purpose of the deductible trip must be business related. The expenses of your spouse or other family members on the trip are deductible if they are co-owners or employees of the business and have a business purpose for being there. Your spouse or other family members are not deductible if they are simply traveling with you. Your spouse's expenses are deductible if your spouse is involved in business-related entertaining, but not if the only function is secretarial, such as typing or making appointments, something that a local person can do at far less expense. You may deduct as business travel expenses, hotels, rental cars, airline fares, automobile expenses, meals, entertainment, laundry, and any other related expenses. The main categories or purposes of deductible business travel include attending a convention or conference, attending a trade show or association meeting, attending a business-related educational program, setting up distributors for your products or services, buying trips for products to resell, a stockholders or partners meeting for your small, closely held business, meetings with current or potential investors, visits and discussions with owners of similar businesses, as a learning experience, of course, or traveling to a business meeting on a cruise ship. IRS has several rules which we must follow when combining business and vacation trips. They're really uncomplicated. Number one, trips within the U.S. If the primary purpose of the trip is business, you may deduct 100% of the cost of your transportation, for instance, airlines or automobile, even if you spend time playing on your trip. If the main purpose was personal, there is no deduction for transportation. The amount of time you spend on business is the most important factor in determining deductibility. Also important is the fact that you had to be in that spot to conduct business or to attend a convention. Even if you extend your trip for a few purely vacation days, your transportation costs are fully deductible. Number two, trips outside the U.S. You may deduct 100% of your travel expenses, even though you vacationed, provided that you can show that, first, the primary purpose was business, second, you had no control over the assignment of the trip. That means that your company sent you, and you are not either a managing executive or own more than 10% of the company. Special rules for small business owners and managing executives are as follows. You may deduct 100% of your transportation costs if the trip outside the United States was 1 week or less, not counting the day you leave, but counting the day you return. Or the trip lasted more than 1 week, and you spent 3 days on business for every 1 day of purely vacation time. If you spent more than 25% of the time as pure vacation days, you may still deduct the business percentage of the trip. Any day on which you conducted any legitimate business at all is counted as a business day. Now, if you conduct business on Friday and Monday, but not on the weekends, you can count the weekend as 2 business days. That's an important rule. If business is conducted on Friday, but not then until Tuesday, guess what? The weekend counts as personal days. Number 3, the rules for conventions and seminars. First, travel to investment seminars is no longer deductible, but travel to business seminars is. Keep a complete itinerary of the convention or seminar as part of your records. You must be prepared to show that what you learned or experienced was directly connected to your business. You must do more than just view videotapes of lectures at your convenience to qualify for the deductions. Number 4, let's look at the rules for foreign conventions and cruise expenses. To take this deduction, you must be able to show that the convention was directly related to your business and that there was a reason for the meeting to be held outside of the U.S. Conventions in Canada and Mexico are not considered to be foreign conventions. You may even use the inside the U.S. rules for conventions held in Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Barbados, Guam, and Jamaica. Here's how you can attend the deductible convention on a U.S. registered cruise ship. The rules say you may deduct up to $2,000 per year for attending cruise ship conventions if all ports of call are in the U.S. or its possessions and is U.S. registered. Good example of trips to book under these deduction rules are an Hawaiian Island cruise, U.S. mainland to Alaska cruises, and Mississippi riverboat cruises. If you travel for business using a cruise ship as your mode of transportation to your destination, you may deduct up to twice the highest federal government per diem. That's the money paid to government employees traveling within the U.S. The highest federal per diem is $126 per day, so you may deduct up to $252 per day per person. For example, if you travel to the Virgin Islands on a cruise ship to attend a business convention or seminar in the islands, your transportation cost deduction is up to $252 per day. If family members or others travel with you but have no business purpose, you may still deduct full auto mileage, auto rental, and hotel expenses which you would have incurred if you had traveled alone. You may deduct only your food and airfare, not that of other non-business related family members. You may not deduct unrelated recreational and entertainment expenses such as sightseeing, ski lift, or theater tickets. Keep good records and note on your receipts if the expenses related to the business portion or personal portion of your trip.
Strategy 6-30. Make interest deductible as a business expense.
Tax deductions for interest are possible when you treat interest paid as a business and not a personal expense. Business interest is deductible, consumer or personal interest is not. When you borrow money to purchase an automobile, video recorder, computer, or other asset for use, even part-time in your business, the business interest portion can be deducted. Your small business, once again, creates deductions out of previously non-deductible expenses.
Strategy 6-31. Consider an S-corporation election.
Although most do-it-at-home businesses should be set up as sole proprietorships, what should you do if you now have a small, closely held corporation? Keep it. The process of setting up the business is already complete. Tax reform changes the rules enough to consider changing a small C corporation to an S corporation. An S corporation from a legal standpoint is not much different than a C corporation, but from a tax standpoint, the S corporation operates like a partnership or proprietorship. Business income and losses in an S corporation are taxed only once at the owner's personal tax rate. An S corporation cannot have more than 35 shareholders, it's limited to one class of stock, and it cannot have any non-resident foreign shareholders or subsidiaries. There are two benefits of an S corporation that make the need for reconsideration clear. Number one, individual and S corporation maximum tax rates after 1987 are 28%, except for some high-income individuals who on part of their income pay 33%. The C corporation maximum tax rate is 34%. Number two, the alternative minimum tax rate for C corporations is much stiffer, which began in 1987 with an increase from 15% to 20%. In addition, C corporations must add back to income more tax preferences before computing the alternative minimum tax, which can significantly raise taxes. On the other hand, an S corporation completely circumvents the corporate alternative minimum tax.
Strategy 6-33. Use your small business to create an investment retirement shelter.
One of the greatest advantages of a profitable small business is the opportunity to create a retirement tax shelter. The rules are so liberal for small business owners that as much as $30,000 to $90,000 per year can be contributed to a defined contribution and defined benefit KEO plan and excluded from your current taxable income. If your small business or profession is showing a profit, you want to contribute the maximum possible to your plan. Let's look at a chart that will show you, based on your business form, which plans you are qualified to have. Notice from the chart that if you have a sole proprietorship, you could set up your retirement plan as an IRA, simplified employee pension plan, or either of the KEO plans, but you can't have a salary deferral plan. Reading at the bottom of the chart, if you're a C corporation, you can't have an IRA, but you can have simplified employee plan, both KEO plan, and a 401k salary deferral plan. Use this chart as your guide in deciding which plans to look into. The more you pour into your plan, the lower your taxable income for the year. With a Keogh, you must have the account open by the end of the year, but you have until April 15th to contribute the money.